we hadn't reached a point in our evolution to where we can handle the nature of what to do with fire.
In your state, and all this stuff is coming in it, yeah? And it's just hitting you, boom, 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 and then you've got to deal with it. And you thought, oh, wow.
One of the members of the workshop went into a spontaneous regression of one of her Egyptian lives, and that completely blew me away. And I knew that this guy was in touch with dimensions that, you know, I can only think of, only perceive, and that was enough, really. And I think if you listen to him, he will, you know, demonstrate who he is, hopefully. So I think with any facilitator, the more powerful the listening, the more you will draw from them. And I didn't plan this, but I get the feeling that everybody here is of a certain point where Gano is going to be able to deliver what he's here to deliver. So can we give a round of applause?
Well, welcome everybody, and I'm glad we're all here on the same page. And the ironic thing about I don't even recall that, Jane, but you know, I've worked to make being of service part of my character, so every day there might be 2 or 3 of those events that Jane was talking about. You can't remember them all. But one of the things that I'm very passionate about is the Creator and the expanse of creation. And for the past 35 to 40 years, I've worked to understand creation a little more. And there's a saying that says that when you take 1 step towards God, He'll take 10 steps towards you. And that, I believe that spells out the expanse of how vast our Father, Mother's creation is. So some of the things that I've seen just within the past 4 years alone could fill up a few volumes of books, and I have to work to keep up with the things that I've seen and documenting it. And my clients, my students, and my initiates have all had extremely palpable, mind-blowing experiences with the spirit world. So I'm motivated to share that with people because the more I've talked to people about some of these things, I start to realize that people don't have these same experiences, and they don't have a clue that the spirit world actually is what controls everything in our world. And there are beings that have names, jobs, and functions that actually make decisions every day about the things that we perceive in our reality. And when you work to form a connection with them, your life begins to improve for the better on many quantum levels. So one of the biggest secrets that I feel in our world is the secret of the multi-dimensional self. So the body that we live in is mostly, people don't really know how to use it. They don't realize that, for instance, the heart rules the brain. The heart has neurons in it. The heart actually thinks, and it's 600 times more faster than the brain. And the Creator, the infinitesimal amount of the Creator that weighs about 0.06 7 grams. And this has been done throughout a clinical study where they weighed about 200 people that were in hospice, ready to die, and there was a consistent weight loss that couldn't be accounted for through body fluids and anything else. And that was the presence of the light that is inside of the eyes, because eyes are the window to the soul. So that part of the Creator is so powerful that it allows us to create realities, but unfortunately in our world, on this third dimensional reality, we're taught from religion, college, work, entertainment, the 4 major things that we interface with every day, to be distracted by what that inherent power is inside of all of us. And because of that, we're living in an alternate reality that has starvation, misery, murder. Our entertainment is predominantly built on how to teach each other how to lie and deceive each other. Our children are playing games that celebrate killing with Grand Theft Auto, predominantly shooting people and things like that. And there's something very wrong with that. So a lot of the beings that I work with that come from other worlds, they point that out, and we really don't see that. So the multidimensional self is the one thing that when you come to know the other parts of yourself that are not in your body and that you don't really have access to, you begin to have a very different relationship with creation. And the only time that you give yourself the permission to experience those parts of yourself is when you go to sleep at night, or if you do a deep meditation and you shift gears in your consciousness and actually interface with those parts of yourself that are on other dimensions, other timelines, and maybe even other worlds. Some of the students that I have seen parts of themselves that are on other worlds, and they think it's a dream, and it is not. So one of the things that I do is I help people to synergize and incorporate those multidimensional aspects of themselves so that they can have a better understanding about what life is about. For anyone not to know what their mission is here on earth is a grave inequity. A lot of people are walking around and they don't know why they came here in the first place. They don't know what their powers and their talents are. But what I explain to people is that there's something inside of you that no one else has ever had or ever will have when you're gone. That's how vast creation is. Everyone has at least one particular gift that comes from the Creator, and it'll expire when you leave. The Creator is very didactic about giving gifts to His children, her children. And when we don't work to unearth those gifts die, and the world doesn't get the benefit of the music that we create, the books that we write, the philosophies that we create, or some of the beautiful artwork, the poetry, the inventions, the technology, the modalities, the experiences that we read about in self-help books, or the things that we enjoy on a regular basis. So, with that, I constantly ask people to take the time to get to know who they are internally. And there are specific ways to do that. Your body, your physical body doesn't come with an instruction manual, unfortunately. But there's an obligation to anybody who lives in a body to find out how their body works, how creation works. And we can't just afford to live off the fat of the land and be apathetic and not purposely move towards evolution. Evolution must ensue no matter what you think. Evolution is going to happen regardless. And if you have to live and die 100 times or 1,000 times and come back into the same situation, the universe has plenty of time. And the gods that created your soul also will watch you live and die many, many times before they step in to assist you. So the education that I have is to name those other parts of yourself that aren't here, give you the names and galactic coordinates of some of the beings that control our local universe and how to get in contact with them. Also, I have brought you, well, let's start with this. I know all about the conspiratorial. I know all about the dark forces that basically control our world and some of the horrible things. You know, you can just look it up on YouTube. You can look up teleportation. You can look up some of the experiments that have been done with the government all around the world. Some of the shadow governments. It's very, very interesting what those governments have and some of the things that they're keeping away from us. Some of the things that have been suppressed and omitted from our history would blow your mind. But I don't lean towards that. What I do is I bring empowerment, enlightenment, and expansion and enrichment. I call them the 4 E's. So if you look on YouTube or you go to my website, galacticus.com, you will see a long list of different experiences that people have had with me, from miracles to meeting their divine parents. How many of you don't know that you have parents that created your soul that are gods? Can you raise your hand? Clive, really? I'm shocked, Clive. We have to talk. Okay, well, here's what I'd like to produce to you. The same way you have physical parents that express their love and created your body, you also have beings that are not human that created the engine of your soul, and they are called gods. Not to be confused with what we call the creator of all. They're very different. So the creator has billions and billions, if not trillions, of children that are called gods. And they're a lot more powerful than you could possibly imagine. And to give you an aspect of what that range is, there's something called the Titan. How many of you know the Titans? The Titans are the primordial gods. An elder god has enough power that a fraction of 1% of the power that comes from an elder god would be more power than the sunlight that our physical sun has ever projected. It's very powerful. How many of you know the name of the creator that created this universe? Raise your hand. Really? No one can tell me the name of the being that created this universe?
Is it female? Or
Yes.
Sophia?
Close.
She's in the earth.
Close. Some people say it is Sophia.
Isn't she? That entity is in the earth. I know Gaia is too, but
Right.
Sophia is there too.
It's well, here's the thing. The spirit about that is you can't be the creator of the universe and still be in cult or trapped in the earth. So the two are very, very different.
She fell because she came down into the matrix.
Yeah, that's part of the mythology, but that's not the creator of. That's what some people say. If you read the Nagamati Gospels, you'll see more of that. Okay. But my point is, out of everyone here, we should all know who the creator of our local universe is, and most people don't know that. Because in the Bible, it talks about God. And God is a title that's relegated to a being that is powerful enough to create a reality. And for us to attribute that name or that title to the grand creator or prime source is an inequity, it's lunacy, it's madness, it doesn't make sense. So what I pose to people is there are gods that have everything to do with our creation, and it's not just relegated to mythology. Mythology means mythos or something that is prehistoric. And a lot of those stories are very real, and that's where a lot of the movies come from, and the power source. I'll give you one paradigm. Superman. How many of you have seen the last Superman? It's very interesting how the one thing that is off is he comes to Earth and he has earthly caretakers that would be analogous to his parents. But he also has parents that live in another star system that created his true self, which is where he actually finds his true source of power. And it allows him to be a god on this world. How many of you have seen the movie Hercules, The Last Hercules? Hercules refuses to accept that he also is a child of a god. And he goes through a very difficult life, but at the moment he's about ready to be killed, he finally looks up at the sky and says, Father, I believe you exist. And finally, all of the power comes into his body, and he's able to break free from the ravages and the arrest that he was in. So Hollywood gets a lot of its information from the gods themselves. What they do is they look into the spirit realm before souls are due to incarnate, and they look at people like Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Gene Roddenberry, a lot of the different writers who write science fiction, and they give them this information, and it slowly comes into our world. The problem and the caveat is we think it's a fantasy, and it isn't. You had a question?
Yeah, you're talking about that there, and I was going to say to you, there's a movie recently, a big Hollywood movie that I watched, and it was called The Life of Pi. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
About a young guy in India. His father has a zoo, all the animals there, and he sells up because he's not making money. They want to move to Canada, but they've got to cross the sea to get there, and there's a big storm, and their ship goes under. But as it goes under, the boat that's connected to it, his parents desperately lower it into the sea, but they lower animals on there as well, a zebra, a tiger, and a hiding hyena. And This young boy, he's 14 years old, he's in the middle of the ocean in this survival boat with these wild animals that are endangering his life, and he has to learn how to survive that situation, and to understand these animals as well, and where that journey is going to take him. But it's not where the journey is just going to take him. He has to influence himself on how to get himself to influence the animals, and in turn they all connect together, so he gets through alive.
The point is he got help from his parents.
Well, he had to let the hyena, all the animals one of them got eaten by each other. The hyena attacked the zebra, then the tiger came out, he'd been hiding under the canopy, and he bit that one. And it was a great film. Then it was the tiger on him.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, but
it reminded me, that story, the reason I brought it up, it reminded me, if you go back into the Bible, and if you look into the Ark, Noah's Ark, and everything, it was a bit like that. It was a bit biblical.
Right. Well, the Bible has a lot of really good stories in it, and that's another thing that I could go into very deeply. But what I will say about the Bible is that, and I'll gauge the audience. I never assume that the people that I'm talking to know anything that I'm talking about. So you'll hear me ask a question like, how many of you know or don't know that the God of the Bible is not the creator of all? Yes? Okay, that's a great starting point. And to me, that's a foundation that will allow you to step out of the illusion of enslavement that we are all in, unfortunately. So for us to know that the Creator gets a bad rap, the Creator gets blamed for the Great Deluge, and the Creator had nothing to do with it. And I'm here to help straighten out that smear campaign and that inequity. Because when you walk around feeling that your Creator hated Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Creator has human attributes of jealousy, there's something that forms inside of you that you don't really trust the Creator. You shouldn't fear the Creator. And the Creator, the true Creator of all, does not have the time to be jealous of anything. And the reason that it says in the Bible, have no other gods before me, there's a difference. The Creator doesn't have any other equals. Gods do, because there are billions of gods, if not trillions of them. So obviously, The gods in the Bible, of which I know there are three, Enlil, Inerta, and Enki, right? For those of you who have read all of the Zechariah Sitchin books, they are the ones that elicited those lower human attributes of jealousy and hatred and slaughtered down the 12 tribes of Israel and all of those horrible things that have happened in the Bible. They played games with Moses, and these things are a fact. You don't have to take my word for it. Just use your common sense and ask. I have 5 children, and my children mostly are grown. They've angered me and they've tested my patience to the fullest, but I can never conceive of destroying any of them, and I'm just human. The Creator does not destroy its creations. The children of the Creator do that. There are gods that have the power to destroy entire worlds, and they do it just for fun. There are also gods that don't like humans. There are planets that are gods that don't like humans. Then there are benefic planets that are conscious beings that actually like humans. Jupiter is one of them. If you look at a group called Earth, Wind, and Fire, any of you guys know Earth, Wind, and Fire? It's one of my favorite groups. The planet Jupiter, as a sentient, knowledgeable being, was responsible for their success. There were about 40 other groups at the same time that Earth, Wind, and Fire was in their heyday. And all of them are obscure except Earth, Wind, and Fire. Every 35 seconds, somewhere on this planet, somebody is playing an Earth, Wind, and Fire record. Why is that? How is it that Earth, Wind, and Fire far usurps all of the other groups that were around at the same time? Does anybody want to take a guess at that?
It was Mother Nature's. Guys, you know, we were talking about the female earlier, the God being the Creator being the female. I agree with that, although I didn't know about that for sure, because we always say the word Mother Nature as a her, a she, and female. So I thought that it was all to do with that. You know,
Okay.
It was this woman, this female God, this Creator, and she just, so now and again, she
Right.
just brings in a tsunami, or she'll just...
No, but the question is, I don't want to deviate from
Yeah.
the point. We'll explore that later
Yeah.
in detail. Yes?
Could you elaborate, please, about Jupiter? Because I know the alignment's very much Jupiter energy. This
And it really, the question really was to help you understand how the planets support our evolution. But the point that I wanted to make about the group Earth, Wind, and Fire, why they are still successful outside of all of the other groups, or most of the groups, was because they employed the power of Jupiter in a conscious way. They rubber stamped a lot of their albums with the symbol for Jupiter. He also employed I Am teachings from the Ascended Masters and inculcated his music with Kemetian knowledge. He didn't really preach about that. And I'm talking about Maurice White, who was the leader of the group. But he employed a lot of the metaphysical concepts, and he also created the music from his heart chakra, not from the brain. So when you create anything from the brain, it's going to have a polarity of beginning and an end. But when you create anything from the heart, it's going to be everlasting. So that's one of the things that we lost knowledge of, how to live from the heart as opposed to living from the brain. One of the things that I asked Spirit for was, okay, once again, I know about all of the attacks, the silent attacks that you're being barraged with every single day, how we're enslaved to work a job just to make ends meet, how we go to college and then we have student loans that we have to pay back. So we're basically screwed over before we even get out of the gate. How we work really hard to get a 401k and we get a fraction of what we worked for 30 years. It's just not right. There's an inequity there. So what I've asked the Spirit for was, how is it that I can help not just my people, but the humanity? Because as you can see, we all have different hues and colors. I don't identify and put myself in a box of, I'm a black man, you're white, you're Puerto Rican, you're Chinese. We all have more in common than, as a human race, than we do not in common. So you're male, I'm female, or you're black, I'm white. We're still dealing with the illusions of difference, and that's one of the things that keeps us separate. So one of my goals is to help bring the human race together through the commonalities that we have. Also, how is it that I can make the lives of humans on earth easier? And what I got through many hours of meditation and study and direct knowledge from Gnosis, there are things that I haven't read in any book that I've been downloaded with from archangels and from certain gods that I work with. One of them being Lord Thoth. He's the one that actually set up the system of ancient Egypt, which was the last golden age that we had. He also gave us magic, writing, and alchemy, turning base metals into something like gold or diamonds, turning certain oscillations into musical notes and masterpieces in music. He's the one that brought that to this world. When human evolution gets to a point when they're ready for something finer, there has to be a decision made by certain councils and hierarchies that look down on Earth and say, Earth is ready to have fire now. So a god or a titan named Prometheus brings the activity of fire, which was once exclusive to the gods and only the gods, to Earth. There was a time where we didn't use fire at all because we hadn't reached a point in our evolution to where we could handle the nature of what to do with fire. There was also a time on Earth when we didn't have yoga or Pilates or the game of chess or music. There was a time where we didn't have music on the planet. So what was it like? We heard the music of the spheres. We heard the music of Mother Nature. We heard the wind blowing, and we heard the music that the water makes. But we didn't have the faculty and the modality of music. Music is also a gift that came from higher dimensions of reality, and the decision was made by certain gods to say, Earth is now ready for music. Let them have it. And so it came. Everything that we enjoy, from the personal computer that Steve Jobs opened up his consciousness and saw the personal computer on a higher world, and he downloaded into his consciousness, worked on it, and now we all can't live without a computer. It's very interesting. So there are things that are in existence already, and I brought some of them into existence through permission to help us have an easier walk here on Earth. Some of them are the things that I teach. Some of them are the modalities. I actually had to go to a celestial court before my birth to petition for the rights to use some of the things that I use. One of them is words of power. Another one is divine healing. When I was in Egypt recently, I had 7 different initiations. And one of them, when I went to a lot of the temples that were in Luxor, I was asked, what do you see in all of these temples? And I thought about it and I said, the Ankh. And then the voice said, now use it. And I said, well, okay. So I went to an alabaster shop and I purchased a nice white alabaster Ankh. I was guided to it. I took the Ankh, and a very dear friend of mine who lives in Tottenham, her name is Wendy, I took the Ankh and I pointed it at her and she fell back. She said, whoa. I said, what happened? She said, I felt that. I felt the energy of the Ankh. It knocked me off of my feet. I said, wow. So I took the Ankh back to the hotel, and we met a woman from Brussels named Martina, who is a retired chemist. Now, ironically, the ancient name of Egypt is Chem, K-H-E-M. She and her husband were both retired chemists. Somehow she confided to me that she hadn't slept in 7 years, a full night. So she slept an hour here, 2 hours there. She was a chronic insomniac. And Wendy said, Gano, why don't you offer her healing? I said, well, I don't know her like that, but I mean, if she's open to it, I don't have a problem with it. So we went to breakfast the next morning, and she comes walking by, And I asked her, I said, are you open up to a healing? She said, yes, I'd like that very much, because I've heard about your condition. So I gave her a brief consultation to make sure that she had a really good hold on reality. And I said, Martina, let me ask you something. Because I believe that whenever we have a dis-ease in our body, we call it in. Whether it's cancer, AIDS, diabetes, you name it. You create the miasma that descends into your physical body from the spirit world to teach you a lesson. So I asked her, why do you feel like you've created this? And she said, I don't know. And I felt the sincerity in her heart. She turned into a little girl. So I said, okay, I would like to come to your hotel room with my student Wendy, and I would like to give you an Kundalini Reiki. And I also gave her some words of power, and I brought my holy oil with me. And I put the holy oil on her elbows, her knees, the small of her back, and her neck, which she said she was always in chronic pain. And as I was giving her the Kundalini Reiki, I had a lot of tears flowing, because what I was told is she's going to be healed today. I said, oh, that's great, okay. So then we laid her down on the bed, and I massaged all of those places with holy oil, and then I spoke to those places with the words of power that I got from Lord Thoth, who was the one who set up Egypt, gave us writing, alchemy, and magic, a very powerful God that you can read about in many books, the Kabbalion, the books of Coming Forth by Day, and the Emerald Tablets, just to name a few of them. When I finished that, it took about 45 minutes. She was out like a light. So Wendy and I left the room quietly. We put the do not disturb sign on the door, and I said, I hope her husband doesn't come back and think she's dead. So we left, and I didn't see her for 2 days. So we went to breakfast 2 days later, and she's bouncing around. She jumped into my arms. She said, oh my God, I've been sleeping ever since, and what did you do? And then she said, how much is the bill? Now, I could have easily said, that'll be 10,000 pounds. And she would have gladly paid it. But I got a red light in my head, not that I was going to charge her anything, but I said, you don't owe me anything, it was just a gift. And the moment, it's 11:11 by the way, so that's confirmation. I was told that was your 7th initiation, congratulations. And that healing was to show you what you can do and the power of the Ankh, because I used the Ankh in that healing. So the Ankh is a modality that also came in that advances your consciousness, and we still don't know the fullness of how to use it. If you look at Lord Shiva also has a staff. If you look at Mercury, he had a vessel. If you look at Poseidon, he had a trident. There were different gods that have come here to earth that always had something called objects of power that would advance you and transform you instantaneously. And I've worked with some of them, and I've seen the power of it. It is so powerful that I have a woman friend of mine who follows me on Facebook, and her name is Kemet Anna, and she lives in Oakland, California. So, ironically, when I was in Egypt, she emailed me and she said, Gano, I'm about to have an operation on my knee. I'm really scared, and I would like to know if you could send me some energy. So I came out of meditation, and I told her, oh, you're going to be fine, and I'll send you some energy. So I sent her 5 words of power, and she went on to have the operation, and there was a scar that formed on her knee. And guess what the scar turned into? An Ankh. Now, human body doesn't do that. Doesn't just form a galactic symbol or a mudra or some kind of formation. Once again, the Ankh proved, and Lord Thoth said, I need you to know that these energies are very alive in you. So that was a wonderful testimony. I also have that on Facebook and some on my website for people to look at and consider that there are other forces that govern our reality, and it pays to get in touch with it. So another story, Anne, one of my students from Brussels, this just happened, what was it, 2 days ago? We did a workshop with her. And I'm going to rewind the clock, actually. there was an event that happened sometime last year where I met Anne for the first time, and I met Dagna. Yes, met these beautiful women for the first time. I also met Jane and
Yeah.
yes, for the first time. And I decided to bring the power of giving miracles to people. So what I did was I put my hand on people's chest and I gave them the energy of a miracle. And everyone received a miracle that came to my workshop. I'd also like to offer that today, later on, for all of us who are still here, for anyone who would like to have one. I didn't come 3,000 miles not to give something of value that you could appreciate on a deep level. So, as Jane had said earlier, when I had given the energy to a young woman named Sheena, she slipped out of her body and she went into an automatic past life regression. And I had to place her energy back in her body, and I didn't expect that to happen. But everyone deals differently with the interface of divine energy in their body. When divine energy comes into your body, it's very foreign and alien because we're mostly human, so we don't allow ourselves to have that signature in us. We usually do it by default, and when we do have a blissful moment, that's the presence of divine energy in your body. Divine energy will cause a miraculous occurrence to happen that you cannot put words to. And those are communications either from a higher being or a higher realm. Miracles is what they use to communicate with us, and it supersedes the laws of our reality. In my presentation, Multidimensional Self, and hopefully we'll have that running a little later on, I have miracles that were caught on tape. I also have Archangel Gabriel in human form, and I have a lot of things that will prove that the spirit world is a place far more robust and mystical than you could possibly imagine. Anyway, with Sheena, when she did the automatic regression, we went downstairs to eat, and she shared with me, she said, Gano, I know what happened. I saw myself in a sarcophagus, and it was you that brought me back from death many times. I said, oh, that's interesting. I also met another lady that was in the lobby, and she kept looking at me, really funny, and I took note of her looking at me, and I said, I don't know why she keeps staring. So I walked over and I talked to her, and we had a conversation, and about an hour and 45 minutes into our conversation, she said, you know, I had a dream about you 2 weeks ago. And I know I don't know you, but I didn't want to tell you it, but you walked into my dreams, and you were teaching a class. I said, oh. I said, well, why would you feel trepidatious about telling me that? She was very, very shy, and she didn't want to freak me out. I said, I'd be the last person here to be freaked out by something like that. So, one of the things also that come with the multidimensional self, we have aspects of ourselves that function in the astral world. We spend 1/3 of our life there in the dream state. So if you remember your dreams and you see that they're a little fuzzy and you can't remember your dreams, it's something that you might want to work on, because you're going to spend more time in that world than you are here when you cross over. And there are certain techniques you could do to sharpen your vision. You actually have a home there now. It is where your ancestors are, and it's a place where you reside. You don't want to die an unenlightened being, and that's the job of your physical body, is to turn you into a corpse without having physical enlightenment. This is the reason why the prophets came, the avatars, the reformers, people like Zarathustra, the gods came to remind us of that. So basically the life that we live on earth, as far as I am concerned, is basically here to distract you from why you are really here. And I would say there's one reason why all of you are here. And I don't mean in this auditorium, but there's one reason why all of you brought yourself back into the Aquarian age and chose to be born at this time. Can anybody take a guess at what you think the reason is? I'd like to hear it. Yes?
To bring human consciousness in one big amount through to a new level.
That is part of something that is much larger, but that's partially true, yes?
I would say to share knowledge with other people.
That's another part of the equation. Clive?
To achieve our ultimate expression of ourselves.
Exactly. Clive said to achieve the ultimate expression of ourselves. And what that means is you brought yourself back into this corporeal reality to achieve something called ascension, which means you are going to take another crack at being enlightened, at taking your memories and unlocking the memories of all of your lifetimes and bringing that with you into the next stage of your evolution. So there's something inside of you that's always pushing you to go further, go deeper, go higher. It's inside of you. And when you ignore that, the energy, the spiritual energy that you brought with you from the spirit world, there's a responsibility of doing something with that. And it is to expand and to grow. If you look at science, science calls 97% of our DNA junk DNA. And it is because science doesn't know what those genes are there for. It's very interesting if you think about it. So you mean to tell me that we have a body that's capable of moving in millions of different kind of ways? If you just look at the flamingo dances and bachata and salsa and river dancing and acrobatics and break dancing and the electric boogie, the body can move in uncalculable ways. We can also come up with all of these different things, but the strange thing is we still don't know the full capabilities because we're operating on 3% of our capacity. So obviously the Creator gave you a vacancy so that you could explore the totality of what you're able to do. But the trick that's being played on you is, if you work at this job for 30 years and 40 years and get another job to support yourself in your golden years, or if you eat this kind of food, the four major food groups, meat, cheese, vegetables that don't have any nutritional value, and I think there's another one that I'm missing, those things will actually kill you because they don't have any value to the body. Or if you go to college for 4 years and then another 4 years and work the rest of your life to pay us back and hope that you can get a job with those degrees that you have, something wrong with that. My mother once asked me, she said, what do you want to do if somebody asks you if you have a PhD or a degree in college? I never went to college, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I told her, I said, Mom, you know what? I don't need that to validate my teachings or who I am, because I have all of the proof of it. I've asked the spirit world and the gods and the beings that I work with, give me the proof to support what I'm doing. And the proof is in the testimonies that people have when they engage with the modalities that I brought in, or me walking into their dreams and teaching them on the inner planes, or being taken up in a spaceship at night. One of my students, Wendy, when we went to Egypt the very first night, we stayed in Luxor, we were taken up on a beam ship that night, and she said, Gano, why did that happen? And I said, well, I had concerns because Egypt had just come from a major upheaval, and I didn't really know her that well at the time, but I knew that she offered me an opportunity to go to Egypt, and we had past life work that we had to work out karmically, and it had to do with bringing energy to Egypt. So when we got to Egypt, we had to perform certain rituals, and it ended up being on the equinox. So we ended up doing some work that benefited that entire region. So when we were brought up on the ship, and now the funny thing is I don't have any memory of this. She remembers the whole thing in detail. You women are something else, because women are tapped into creation, because everything that comes into creation comes through the energy of a woman. And this is the reason why I asked you earlier if you're aware of the name of the person, not the person, but the entity, the being that created this universe, because it is the energy of a woman. And all of you should know who that is. And I'm not going to tell you. I'll just allow you to do your research. And if you have difficulties finding it in a few weeks, you can email me and I'll give you the answer to that. Okay, so anyway, that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm looking forward to showing you the presentation of the multidimensional self. And lastly, I got a technology from Archangel Haniel, and it's called the homoluminous body. The homoluminous body is something that will allow you to step out of the skins of your mother and your father's DNA and out of your own shame. It's a very beautiful, beautiful technology that she gave to humans. And I will offer that to you later on, as well as a miraculous healing and maybe some other things. So thank you for your time, and it's been great talking to you. And
Okay, thank you so much.